okay, this is Management Monday. We've got a lot of stuff to get through today. Let's see how much we can. I'm obviously conscious of people's time and of Zoom fatigue. I don't want anybody flaking out or losing focus. So let's see how much we can get through, and we can always kind of push a little bit, if we don't get through everything. So this list isn't in a prioritized fashion. I just kind of noted things down as they came up. So maybe we want to just have a look through, and if anything jumps out as something that someone wants to speak to immediately or definitely wants to get spoken to today. I think for me, one of the most important topics is offboarding of Jody and myself from PM roles. I do notice that Eric is on this call, and I was wondering, as somebody who's just recently onboarded, that might be a useful thing to think of, like how might it have been done better and stuff like that. So kind of tying those two conversations in.
I feel like the items I added, did they just get, I thought there were two other items I added. Which one was included? Offboarding a view. I don't see it in there.
Maeve and Jody PM plans, offboarding teams, assigning folks to make issues and such.
Oh, it might be all the way at the bottom.
Yeah, they're right at the bottom.
At the very bottom of the page.
Yeah,
I'll cut them and put them. We'll put those up first.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so that's for me. Those are quite important topics.
What's instructions for user template?
Where's this Google Doc again?
I just put it in. It's in the chat for the Zoom.
What is instructions for user template?
That was Caroline asked us to put that in there. It's basically
cover page.
Yeah, it's like a cover page for the user.
For users, yeah.
So it's not. Yeah, it's the instructions for user in quotes template.
Did you say you put it in the Zoom chat?
Yeah, it should be in there. I can put it in again. 1 second.
I saw it last week, but I couldn't find it this morning.
Okay, I put it back in the Zoom chat.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so those are, for me, those are quite big priorities. The other stuff is kind of, we've got basic questions in style at 7 and 8, and those are things that kind of came up throughout demos that we wanted to make decisions on. 9, that we're going to have to table that because Kate's not here, and that was specifically for Kate. So I'll just ask her about that.
Do we want to make a section that's like tabled?
No, I'm just highlighting that. I'm going to ask her. Okay. So.
Do we want to do it in this order?
I think. Yeah, let's start with the offboarding plans. So as you know, Jody and I will be. Well, Jody's actually she finished last week. So now she's just being a little angel like Michelle and I. And Eric, actually.
I got my halo.
Yeah.
Right.
Your halo. Yeah.
Hold on.
Oh, wait. Hold on.
He's going to put a halo on you.
Actually put a halo on.
Well, I didn't put a halo on you, but.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go, David and Quentin. Nice.
Oh, David's
I need to update my Zoom so that I can get this on. So we just need to bear this in mind and think about it practically. How are we going to do this if, I'm taking on a full-time role. So my time here is going to be limited. I was saying, budgeting an hour or two a day in like a more developmental role. Obviously that's not going to preclude me from helping out with the project management, but I won't be able to be in the kind of formal capacity that I've been on. Jody in the same vein as well, because she's going back to school.
I feel like one important thing is we need more people. Like, I don't think we can spread this load. Like, I'm pretty full up. So, but I mean, things are going to be switching with students too. I might have time, but I'm not really a project management.
So Quentin and I had some discussions about this earlier in the week in regards to taking on responsibilities with our classes. So I think the reality is that right now we've got a good cohort of folks who are, such as Jody, who are working during the summer at something like part or full time. And that is going to change drastically as we enter the school year. So basically all of our students are going to switch over to being, 7 hours a week or something equivalent. So basically like a day worth of work week, days worth of work a week. Also, the number of them will probably shrink a little bit. So we'll probably at the end of the day have, a dozen or so students who will be working. Some of those will be in Quentin and my courses, but they won't actually be able to start working on it until it's part of their final project, which will be like maybe 6 weeks in, and will be at a much diminished amount. So maybe we'll be able to do one form. And then we'll have students will be in our lab. Right now we have 3 students, I think, in the lab. They'll be able to work right away. And that's Aubrey and Michael are 2 that we already have from here. So they'll be coming over, but they'll only have an expectation of 7 plus a few hours work a week. So there's going to be just a great constriction of what we're able to do. I think one of the things we're very, but the thing is that then Quentin and I get to take on a project management role with those students through the existing structure of our classes. And so we were trying to figure out about ways to figure out when people will be able to meet and whether or not they'll be able to meet all together. And what will probably end up happening is there'll be, sub-teams within the larger team that we can continue to meet with, but not everyone will meet all together, and we probably won't be able to keep up a daily cadence.
That's what I was thinking. With the pace slowing down as much as it's going to be, it probably won't make sense to meet daily anymore. And so that will help with that will lessen the load of the project manager or whoever's going to take that. You know what I mean? Like everything's going to slow down, and so adjust everything accordingly. We have to keep doing what we've been doing.
Yeah, I think we just have to be aware that everything is going to slow way down.
Transition.
Yeah. And then the other thing is that I think the thing that I'm most concerned about, and maybe we could talk a little bit about, is transitioning with those core members who are not folks who make our daily stand-ups right now. So I think that's mostly folks who are sort of, international, who, unlike Eric, their time zone doesn't quite work with ours for the lunch meetings. Because that I recognize is where you've been doing almost all of the contact there. And so that's something that I'd like us to talk more about.
Okay. Yeah, that is one of the things.
But I think
schedule some mornings. I mean, have sort of break up the schedule a little bit.
Yeah, I think it depends on who the folks are. But part of this is people are going back to their lives.
I think if we can put a bunch of work in to tighten up the process, I think that would definitely help.
That's what
Because
we're trying
it's
to do,
on a
yeah.
slower schedule.
Yep.
Like I maybe I'm just not. It's okay if I'm not seeing it happen, but it would be great to understand what's happening and at what pace and in what ways we can contribute. It just would help, because maybe there are things that you're going, okay, these are the things we need to do. And for my part, for my slice of the process, though I'm not able to articulate it, if I saw a list, I'd say, oh, wait, but what about X, right?
Yeah.
So
would you, Michelle, would you classify that as discussions of surfacing the whatever metrics or things that Maeve and Jody are using now to sort of discover things, surfacing that same information?
Systems and metrics. Mm-hmm. So not just metrics, also systems.
Yeah, I was thinking more about just the surfacing process.
Where do we have a whatever line, whatever it's called, where like we did for the PDFs originally, where we have these step-by-steps and we actually have it really well spelled out, or where we have checklists for the finishing carpentry, or identifying where checklists or processes are needed to be defined, so that there isn't so much onboarding, so that there isn't so much inventing.
Right. So it's sort of
Maeve and Jody to be reinvented.
Yeah. Well, can you our documentation is not just about the process, but remembering that you're part of the process. And so what is it that you folks are doing now to surface information about things that people are working on?
What questions do you regularly answer in the chats? Like,
Where are you looking to see what people are working on? Are you doing, you know, check-ins with people? At what frequency do you do that?
and when people
Um,
contact you, what do they ask that you are
Mhm.
able to answer?
And I'm very aware that that's like one of the hardest questions to try to answer.
Yeah. And so like
Having
it's
had to
entirely,
that.
which is to say, I think it's entirely reasonable for you to do with those things, not to feel as much as you need to document them in like a completely replicable way, because someone else will be stepping in, mostly Quentin and I. So it's just so that you give us the shape of things, because we're obviously going to have very different constraints and availabilities. Where I really want to button down documentation that's like, you can follow this and there are checklists, is where it would be something that would be being done by these people who are not full-time
Yeah.
contributing members.
I think one of the things that's been really helpful for me is in deciphering kind of what everyone is doing is working on that onboarding process with Tyler, you know. And so I think if we can define Maeve's role, and then I can try to figure out, like, I can work with Maeve on this this week and next. And like, if I define Maeve's role, then we can figure out, like, one of the things Maeve, I'll give you an example. I'm thinking and talking at the same time, sorry. If I define Maeve's role, I can then pull out things that won't necessarily have to stay with like a project manager. So let me give you an example. In the like when we were talking about the onboarding process, one of the things that was happening was Tyler was sending everyone to Maeve. After he gave them like the basic info, get these applications, watch these videos, blah, 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 he was sending everyone to Maeve. What I changed was, if they're going to be someone who's just going to be a kind of a casual drop-in help once, for a couple hours a week, let's have them be testers. And then you can help them, Tyler, like you as the onboarding person can help them get connected with testers and blah, blah, blah. And so we pulled Maeve out of that piece. So that's just an example of how we can streamline it. So again, like, I think moving into this new cadence where the project is going to slow down considerably, we don't need to have a Maeve. It's not like we need to replace Maeve one for one. Let's replace her like kind of, in the aggregate, like, in a, you know what I'm saying? Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, her roles you can do, right? So all these things be replaced, but
Caroline, we're losing you.
pieces.
Sorry, Caroline, we're losing you.
Also, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, I'm in and out. I've got I'm doing some child wrangling.
Oh, okay.
So
What I was basically saying, David, that's good because I botched it like the first 2 times I said it. So
right.
basically what I was saying is, I think with Maeve, she's kind of the one doing the most. So the most kind of all over, right? Like, she's like the biggest jack of all trades right now. So if I work with Maeve, we kind of document everything that she's doing. It's not like we're going to have to replace Maeve one for one, right? I'll be able to figure out where it makes sense to pull things off her plate and put them like in a different role. Again, making it like, so I think one of the things that we need to do as part of the process documentation is to define the roles, not just the roles like for random volunteers that pop in, but roles for like, the manager type, like project manager. We could even have like a project manager 1, a project manager 2, whatever, and it'll make more sense. And one of the examples I was giving them is Tyler, for the onboarding piece, was sending everyone to Maeve after he gave him like the basic kind of, intro. And so for the ones that were going to do testing, I was able to pull that off of Maeve's plate and just have Tyler get them like linked up with testing. So that took that off her plate. That's just an example. I can go through and do things like that once I have all the stuff listed out of what Maeve's doing. So that's the plan.
In terms of checklists, though, that was another thing you mentioned. Jody, I don't know if you have the document open up on your screen right now. If you could just share that.
I do.
So we've been documenting kind of the flow and building out checklists and stuff here. And then this is Jody writing out what rules we're going to create. So you've, as I said, we've divided it into 3 steps, but I'm realizing now that there's actually finishing carpentry, which should be included as well. Pre-processing, development, and testing. And then within each heading, there's different items, and then within most of the items there are checklists. One of the things that was beneficial from John was that, you know, we had a lot of lists in Trello, and he was saying a lot of these lists could be combined into one list and made into a checklist. So that was something that was quite beneficial, and viewing it through that lens.
Okay.
So maybe we can just kind of show people one example. So like at the very beginning, we were going to make the automated rule, anytime a new card is added to the board, move it to form prep SME, because that's the first step, and then add checklist 1.1. So that checklist would be added. Then when form prep SME checklist 1.1 complete, then move to 1.2 buffer. And then it sits in there. And then when someone's ready to work on that piece, the next piece, because it could change, we basically have a buffer in place anytime something like a card is going to potentially change hands. So when someone's ready, then they would move it to the priming and quality check PDF, if it's a PDF form, or priming and quality check docx when it's a docx form. And then we have some checks in place that, like, if they go in the wrong place, we have like flags that will, you know, alert. So it really is intended to move, and it'll make a lot more sense when you read through every line, but it's a real, you know, it's not a quick read. So that's just to kind of give you guys an idea. And then
can we just say something, Jody, on the buffer point? The buffers was something that we took from John. Basically, his mentality is a pull system, not a push system. So, and the way that I think he explained it, Jody, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you have a sausage stuffing machine and you're going to continuously keep stuffing the sausage in, and it might just, you know, unless there's people ready to take the sausage out the other end, it's going to just explode. So rather have it.
It's a beautiful image.
I don't think that's the exact analogy that he might have used, but basically that's the thought. So rather have people upstream, because also the thing that he was saying is that there's probably going to be less people upstream than there are going to be downstream. So rather having people pulling the work as they are able to do it. And that's the reason that we have those buffers there.
That's exactly right. And because we don't want to create a backlog. That's really what we're trying to avoid, is a backlog. And again, part of the reason we use, you know, one of the biggest reasons we're using Trello is the visibility, right? The visibility of just being able to look at it and know what's going on with everything. So if you see a bunch of stuff in, let's say, like 1.6 review. Let's see, you see 6 cards in 1.6 review. You might not necessarily know what's going on with those if we don't have a buffer between 1.4 and 1.6. Because we have the buffer, if you see 6 cards in 1.6 review, you know that those 6 cards are already currently, they have a person assigned, they're all being worked on.
Oh, they're already being reviewed. If they're,
yes.
Guys, can I just interrupt? Somebody is like sitting on their keyboard or something, or there's a cat. I don't know.
I'll turn me off.
Oh, I don't hear it.
No, it's not hearing. They're sitting in the document, and it's just like going crazy.
I looked at the track changes and it seemed like it was you, Maeve.
No, it wasn't. I am not.
Is that the work
Your invisible cat. It's your invisible cat, Maeve.
Which document, Maeve? Which document is it?
The management meeting notes.
Oh.
There's suddenly just a whole lot of spaces and then a number.
Yeah, someone heavy on the enter key.
Yeah, it looks like it's abated though, right?
Yeah, stop now, guys. So whoever the guilty party was, I don't think it was me. Okay, sorry for interrupting there. Yeah, carry on, Jody.
Okay, so yeah, Caroline, I think you were going to say that if you see, say you see 2 cards in 1.6 and you see 4 cards in 1.5 buffer, you know that those 4 cards in 1.5 buffer are waiting for a person to then move, like to actively put them into 1.6 review. So again, it's a very quick way, instead of having to go through every card and like, what's the status? It's going to be such easier to just look, and it's like just snap the line, you'll be able to see what's going on. That was the wrong analogy, but anyways, hopefully you guys know what we mean.
I think we got the idea.
Okay.
So that's kind of, before we had this cohort of team members, we really didn't have, this kind of like daily contact with people. We were largely relying on documentation, especially when we were heavy in the pre-processing stage. And it worked well. We had some tight documentation that now needs to be improved, just updated a little bit. But this is kind of the idea with this kind of document. Obviously, this is not for the team members. This is for admin. And we would then make it more kind of understandable, kind of similar to, or a bit of a better, bigger version of what we initially had in terms of workflow. And that's basically what this is. This is like the higher level version of it, kind of with things that, aren't that understandable for everybody, but we would ideally make it, in the next 2 weeks, kind of bring it in line with how the other one looked, specifically with, say, links to things that they might need, that kind of thing. So it's basically a workflow document. What Jodi's done now is she's taken what I've put in and then transform those into rules that, how the cards in Trello would move.
So yes, sticking with Maeve with your sausage analogy, this document is how the sausage is made.
I was waiting for someone to make the comment.
Were you?
Just waiting.
Well, there you go. I took it.
So the recipe.
So yeah, this is the recipe. Exactly. This is how it would move forward. And again, going back to what we kind of talked about last week, one of the big questions is, do we put this much automation in the board since we're using the free version, and every time something moves automatically, it gets like it gets a ding. So that counts against us. So but essentially, once we have it all written out, we can look and, again, we'll still understand the logic, and whether we do it manually or automated, we can still do it. We can still achieve the same result.
Ta-da!
Yay!
I feel like it's like when you do a performance and then everyone's just like crickets.
I think it's the Zoom
so
fatigue.
amazed at how well we did with this, right?
I think it's the Zoom fatigue, but yes, no, this is
looking
really,
amazing.
really
I'm
helpful.
trying to take it in.
Really
So.
impressive.
Stunned into silence.
There's so much
Are we able to, maybe you were saying this, but the automations, the last time you talked about this, we were trying to figure out, we're limited to, are you exploiting the most automations we can have? You're like,
I'm putting in the ideal.
oh, I
And
see,
then-
gotcha. So this isn't necessarily working yet because we've got to figure out how we're going to do it.
But what we would do is, if we do figure out that we're going to be constrained by the limitations of the account, then what we could do is change a lot of these automated rules to manual rules. So the logic would remain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in
And
fact,
you just have it be some people's jobs to just sit on top of the buffers.
John
And,
suggested Quentin.
well, in reality, it's gonna make Quentin and me.
He said you
together.
should have an expert whose job it is to not be assigned a single form, but to scan.
Or yeah,
Someone like
exactly.
Quentin.
It does make sense.
could you
When
not
this
have
is working
last-
like amazingly, we'll have the blocker stickers that will come up that say, help, something's wrong with me, or help, I can't move forward. And then that would be like Quentin, Michelle, like you guys would go through and scan the board, and you'd be able to say, oh, here's a blocker, let me look at that.
What,
And that's
can you not have the last checklist item be moved to this?
Yeah, that
moved
would
to
just
the
be if it was
buffer
manual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%, Caroline. That's a really good, yeah. So if we do have to revert to manual, that's what it will be like. But we'll have this in place, and obviously this will, as everything on this project, we'll iterate, if things need to get improved or whatever, we can keep it changing in this document.
And there's probably a robustness argument to be made to say that as much should be manual as, is not mind-numbing. Right, so because things change and automations break, and so.
Right, yeah, and that Michelle's kind of thing with the testing, you shouldn't overcomplicate the automation. So right now we've got, you know, even if the automation, as Jody said, this is the ideal situation, but the movements are in place. And as Caroline said, we have checklists where we just say, you know, next step.
It's just who, it's just who does it, a person or a thing.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So we still have to investigate what services we can get to do automations. Is that right?
They were looking into that, and I think yes, that was the last where we left it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's what I'll do. I'll put
But we're not holding our breath because we think that basically trying to do this all on a budget of 0 is, you know, eventually having consequences.
Yeah. So are we thinking, do you want to just set it up so those automated those automations are the last thing in the checklist now, and then when we get to a point where we can automate, we automate?
I don't know I think it's the other way around though, isn't it? Surely the automation things are very confusing though. So like, I'm not sure how many automations we get really.
Yeah, so I think
we try and assess, like, as we go through this, if we start all manual, I think we can figure out which things it would be really helpful to automate.
And just as I've been going through and writing it, it's like I feel like the ones that we want to automate are the ones that are going to be the most beneficial to us.
Sure.
It will help us like catch things that are wrong. Like if there's a form that should be a docx and it's sitting in a PDF, you know, column, then let's get an alert on that, to stick a blocker on that, so that we know, like, somebody needs to look at that. Either it's in the wrong place or it's in the right place and it has the wrong sticker.
So is that an automation, recognizing a docx in a PDF list?
I can create that. Yeah, we can create that. We can write that.
So yeah, I think Maeve and Jody have a good handle on where the logic is, and then they'll figure out what would be best to automate, and then we'll figure out if we can.
So I think capturing domain knowledge is the other part of this. For example, testing. Like Maeve, you're the one who has handle. I can advise on like how to decide what tests to make, like what is overkill versus what really needs to be tested. So obviously to my idiom, but like the testing, the creation of tests and the code that's associated, and like getting people, like, where do the basic inputs come in, and et cetera, like that needs to be passed on.
Okay, so that needs to be documented.
There might be other things like that too that I'm not thinking of now, but if I see a list of things, I might be able to add to it over time. I don't know.
Okay. So I've put here domain knowledge, creation of tests, and code that's associated with those tests. Workflow and
editing videos.
Yep. Yeah, workflow and related things.
The video one could just be like a pointer. Yeah, at least there's some skills which are like really specific to our project, and it's always good to offload the work of documenting when we can.
Yeah. The one thing that I was going to say was, what's going to happen with the stand-ups? Daily stand-ups, I'm not sure how necessary they're going to be after, you know, before, what kind of meeting would you suggest?
So all of the students will end up having effectively weekly stand-ups as part of their existing class structure. The different cohorts will have different days. So the lab students will meet on Tuesday. Is yet to be determined what the clinical fellows meeting time will be. And then we could also establish a non-student one that work. So maybe we have 2 or 3 stand-ups per week. It would be nice to keep something that's like the management meeting associated with one of the student class stand-ups. That way those students could get interactions, especially with like Caroline and Michelle. The time that is on the schedule for that, and I don't know if this would work for folks, would be Tuesday 4 to 6. That would be the first time I would ask us to consider that time. If it doesn't work, we can find another time, but those students are only going to be the students. So Aubrey and Michael will be available at that time.
If management Mondays is after 6, then I can't do it on Tuesdays. But if,
Yeah, it wouldn't be after. It would be up until. So it's really 4 to 5:50.
okay.
And we could take the point is we could take a chunk of that. Maybe not to do traditional management where we don't have everyone talking, but the part where we all interact, definitely.
So stand up, basically.
Yes, a little more than, yeah, so I guess stand up.
Some decision making though, right?
Some decision making there, because we'll,
like
Some
how it was
advice and help.
before, right?
Yeah.
So before the students joined, we were having a kind of, it was a mix between stand-up and management meeting every day. That was what it was. So you kind of want that.
I think what will probably happen is in those 2 hours, we'll do the entire gambit of what you would see. So you come in the first 15 minutes to stand up, and then there'd be, you know, basically sort of like Teaching Tuesday / office hours. Then there will be, you know, or however we want to do that. And then folks could come in external folks could come in at the appropriate time for them. So maybe that would argue for doing management and stand up together first, and then people could, like you guys, could not have to worry with, you know, sort of Teaching Tuesday / office hours type stuff. The point is we've got to, just because people's availability as far as students goes is super constrained. So we have a window that we know they'll be available. We should exploit that window.
Do you have some students that are in either 2 or 3 of your classes?
We only have up to 2. We're still waiting to see if someone will do all 3.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Is Jody in all 3, or is,
I think Jody just said. I think Jody said,
go.
I'll be back in 1 minute."
Oh.
Okay.
It's like charades, but not as fun. Okay.
Yeah, the problem is that our classes are not going to be able to operate as stand-ups because they have a primary other focus. It's just that people will be able to work on this as a project.
Mm-hmm.
What is your expectation of like our ability to consult with you or Quentin or that kind of thing? Like, what is that connection going to be like?
Well, whatever. I mean, it's entirely up to you as to how available you want to be. I think we'll try to make whatever we can work, because we're very aware of the fact that you are giving generously of your time.
No, I mean like.
But we don't have any
questions. Is that what you mean?
For your limitations, as far as like keeping in touch on various aspects on the project. Yeah. Like if we need your consultation or something
if you want
like that.
I mean, I imagine I'm going to try to continue to be. I think our time will be less because we'll be spread over more things. But I think we still would want to be as available as.
Right.
I'm not quite sure. Make it concrete for me, please.
Okay, so I'm saying like it might, for example, which I didn't articulate to myself till now, but for example, can there be set times when, like right now, if I post on Slack, right, then you'll probably respond to me within like 20 minutes to an hour, if not less, right? So like, but what happens if you start getting full up on things? Can we reserve some of that space for?
Yeah, we should definitely reserve space. Yeah, we should definitely reserve space. And that's why my suggestion is that we'll have the blocks of class time, which will be time when we can interact on things. And we should probably set out a additional time that is sort of.
Just for admin stuff.
Yeah.
But it could be a mix of office hours again, but it's for the more experienced members of the team rather than the newest members.
So we would definitely carve out some time, yes.
Okay.
I still expect to be generally available for Slack. I mean, I'm teaching one class, so
I thought you had other consultation stuff.
Well, except we've done a very good job of folding most of them into this.
Oh, okay. Very nice. That's
which is why we have which is why I keep talking about be students in classes. So we've as much as possible tried to take our existing responsibilities and overlap them with this project.
Wow, cool.
So it'll be nice to kind of get some kind of office hours because, it was nice to have stand-up where we could raise any issues and kind of, I'm concerned that there's going to be a downtick in communication, especially with, people not having that daily opportunity to talk.
Yeah.
There will be, yeah.
And people are going to be...
Sorry?
No, and people are going to be siloed too, because they'll be within cohorts. So we'll have, students in one class will naturally be segregated from students in other classes just because of their schedules.
I mean, if they all have a Slack place to go to, there will at least be that.
Yeah, we will have that, but there will, I mean,
Yeah.
there will definitely be groupings.
Yeah.
And we keep casual Fridays, so obviously we still got casual Friday.
I don't know. We'll think
You guys
about
are
keeping
canceling casual Friday? One day it's literally just going to be me, and I'm going to impress everybody.
No, just
Things-
keep
I could
dropping
still
the
do
link.
casual
Maybe.
Friday.
Yeah, we can still do casual Fridays. It may be a little, dynamics change a little bit when
Abbreviated?
people are students. So,
Oh,
It's,
team
Of course,
members.
right?
so
I don't know if we can have casual Fridays without you, Maeve, though.
no.
I'll be here. That's what I'm here for. That's why I'm staying on casual
He's only
Friday.
going to show up for casual Fridays.
You,
Yeah, only casual Fridays.
it'll. No, that's a very good point. That it's going to be it's a class thing, but you just don't have to invite them.
I'm just saying that my involvement may be different.
Yeah, you're not
You're
going
saying
to
you
be.
don't
Bring out the whip.
Well, I'm saying
You're
it's
not
one
sure
thing
if
to
you join it if it's the
Grade book up
student.
here.
Well,
social time?
yeah. Well, it's one thing that. Well, also maybe that's not the most beneficial for the students too. There might be
Right.
it might be a better experience for them. Right now, it's a different thing. All the summer students we have are all, no one's getting like a letter grade,
Right.
based upon their interactions with us. And so it's just a different dynamic, and it's something that I need to be aware of, and that
Right. I mean, if people don't fence and they don't play sports and they don't do Scrabble, I mean, they get a failing grade, right?
that's the sort of thing you have to worry about people coming away with
Right.
an impression about.
Yeah.
And so it's very important that no one feels like anyone's being thought of as a favorite, or you have to
Sure.
do this to do that to do
Yep.
well. So
Yeah.
that's just an expectation. But that's to say, I want to find some way to keep having a casual, informal meetup of the team, and I think that's very beneficial for group cohesion.
Yeah.
It's just that maybe casual Fridays becomes less official.
Right. And also the thing
Well,
is, if these
'cause,
students are going to be
I mean, when
online-
I was, okay,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, you kind of want a little, because, like when I was, I was a classics major at college, and we used to have wine and cheese parties a few times a semester. Not that I
Don't
drink
get
anything
Colorusso
alcoholic.
kicked out of law school.
But we did. We'd go to
Well, we do
professors-
have alcohol at law school events occasionally, so it's it's not unheard of.
Sure.
But this is undergraduate in New York. I mean, the point is that you'd go hang out at the professor's
Yeah, it's fun.
apartment and you'd hear this revered professor's husband call her babe. It was so cool. It was very cool. She's like this completely unbelievable, like brain in another hemisphere type of genius. And then her husband calls her babe. It's very cool. And
Well,
nothing.
it's a
I don't think
humanizing
anybody's
thing.
anything with their grades.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll be sure to have Jessica come by and call me babe at some point.
Well, this is what I was saying. This whole pandemic has really humanized people, because you've seen people like, obviously you guys are in the faculty, and there's a certain kind of distinction and stuff. Like, I couldn't imagine being on Zoom calls with my professors in this kind of
Informal.
casual and informal interaction. So it's really nice to some extent, but I do get that you have to be aware of certain things. So maybe just apply your mind to that a little bit, and then we
will apply our mind.
we still
I
got
mean,
another
there's- I
few.
just-
We will
Well, there's
not
one more-
leave you alone
Me and Eric.
on Friday night.
I'm
And
gonna be there. I got no
Me and
classes.
Michelle.
I mean, and the thing is, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it weekly.
Yeah.
You could do it not so frequently. But the other part of that is, when I was teaching Latin, I had this little girl, Jenny Dorman, and she was not doing very well in Latin. I started coaching her field hockey team. All of a sudden, she started getting A's in Latin. It was because I saw a different side of her. And I don't know what clicked, but it completely changed her participation in Latin class and her whatever it was, her motivation. I don't know. I'll never forget that, sort of seeing her from a different side and having a different relationship with her really improved her. And I don't know that any of the girls I coached grades went down in class.
Yeah.
right. So my only point was to flag that
We can't
the formality of
understand
them might
Caroline.
change.
This connection.
That's all. Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, my only point
Yeah.
was to flag that it might not be an officially scheduled thing.
Required from class. Required for class. A wine and cheese night with David Colarusso.
So I'm conscious of everyone's time and that we've only
Thank
gotten
you.
like one item down on the list.
Yeah. This is a
So
big one, though. Okay,
Is
so
there's one really teeny one, which is, does anyone want to look at the Bentley feedback and pull issues out of it? Has that like first level thing?
I would like to do that, but I think I sort of feel like the Bentley thing we can do. I don't know. I'm really concerned about the instructions for users and the basic questions, but maybe we can do all of that online through emails and Slack messages. Did you have a summary of the Bentley review, or is it?
I do. David and I both have it.
Okay.
I could post it on the UX channel. That might be the first step.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess that is important as well. I don't,
okay,
maybe
so,
it would.
I'm just looking for a person who wants to volunteer for it. That's all my item would be, not discussing it, just volunteer.
We just need a volunteer. So let's put it out somewhere where we can get volunteers.
Okay, I can put it on the UX channel, yes.
yeah. And then can you share that back with the assembly line channel as well?
I do think we should, as we're adding more stuff to our plate, I think we should think about how we do that in a way that, and Caroline's saying stuff.
To make the changes or just to review it?
I think.
So I haven't really opened it yet.
Just
So
to turn it into
yeah.
issues. Just to turn it into issues. Like take the text and turn it into a list of issues.
Well, no, I mean, I think Caroline did a really great job with the first set of feedback of applying discretion when she did it. Because having 50 issues versus one spreadsheet isn't necessarily easier if they're not all things that we want to act on.
So looking for a volunteer to, Caroline says she can do it.
Caroline's saying she can do that again. Okay.
Looking for a volunteer to apply discretion to feedback and then create issues based on that discretion.
Yes.
Not sure that's the best thing for our students. Okay, Caroline, I'm assigning you. You're on it. Volunteer as tribute. Caroline assigned. But I think, Quentin, if you wouldn't mind just still putting that in the UX channel, and then sending Caroline a link to the UX doc, please.
Okay.
So the next one I think is pretty quick too. I've done Aubrey's team. I did someone else's team. I don't currently remember who they were.
Sinead and
but I can
Anola,
try to
you did.
So the remaining teams, I think we just need to identify who they are, and someone has a conversation, figures out who in that team is going to start writing issues and, kind of recording decisions and recording what needs to pass and then what needs to be done next type of thing.
So we need to have a discussion with the remaining teams to determine who will be writing issues. And I saw that Blake actually volunteered to show the teams how to do that, which was quite nice. And I'm pretty confident issues are relatively simple to create. I think the actual drafting of the issues might get a little bit complicated, so it might be nice to have like maybe Michelle or you and I could sit on them like call.
Sure. And I mean, we could review the ones that Blake and Matt you have done and see like if those are a good example, those might help.
Okay. So I have a list of the team, so we can just maybe tomorrow I'll just ask them I'll do a doodle and they can just schedule a time. With me, my week is relatively free for now.
You mean Blake can, or?
Well, no, I think that
Blake can show people how to make issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we just need to have a kind of like offboarding conversation and explain what we're looking for.
Oh yes.
Documentation of decisions and almost the way that I think of it is like a to-do list. Is that
and also capturing things that we don't want re-examined. Like we don't want them re-researched. We don't want them questioned. Like these are the reasons we did it.
To-do list and things we don't want to re-examine.
So yes, so let's figure out offline who they are, online, offline, off this line. And then I think the next one is also, I mean, if anyone has thoughts, definitely, but I think the next one is also pretty quick, which is I propose that we take review screens off of MVP as they are becoming a blocker for forms that are otherwise finished or
I
like
concur with that.
mostly finished.
I think the real problem we have there is that we don't have enough people doing the next stage of saying this form is ready to go to the court. The people are bored and finding the next thing that they can do on the form.
Okay.
That might be true.
So how do we fix that?
I don't think people are saying, oh, review screens are the next thing. I believe they were told that review screens were the next thing.
I haven't heard that on any stand-ups, but they might have gotten the impression from somebody. I don't know how, because we didn't teach anyone how to do review screens. So I think people just volunteered and found it an interesting thing to try.
Okay.
I think
So far, 2 teams are doing it.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the way, people that I've talked to got the impression that this was a required step. So I don't know where that happened, but like, that's
well, we can
where
make
it's
it
at
clear
right
that
now.
it's not a required step. However,
Might be on
once
the checklist. That might be one.
yeah, that might be it. Once people get to an MVP, though, they don't have to stop working because as long as we can version things.
Yeah, and so maybe we request that they make a version that does not have the review screen and is all tested. And I mean, they can work on what they want, but if they could work on making it completely ready for the courts, like that would be very useful, I think. Thoughts?
Yep, I agree with that.
So, yeah, I agree. I don't know if there are enough people who, I know we made the checklist, which really helped quite a lot. I think we still didn't find enough people to get it, to be responsible for actually getting the form to the court yet.
Yeah,
if I didn't have the multi-signature, multi-device choice thing, that was my plan for the last 2 weeks, which have been kind of eaten up. But
that what you're doing is really, really important.
well, thank you. It's good to hear that sometimes because it is pretty painful. So
I know it's horrible, but I
coming.
also think it's like fundamental to making these interviews work for
Just remember the pain's proportional to the importance.
more than one
That's
person.
what you say. All right, I'll keep that in
If
mind.
only.
Keep that in mind. I expect
Is that
like a
and
gold
the other way to
star
say
or
it,
some kind of
okay,
certificate
domain.
after this.
Well, we have hats we can give you.
Okay, I'm good. I'm good in hats. I'm a hat person.
We've
You should
got a
see
ball
me. I'll
cap
wear
and
some
a
hats
beanie.
sometimes.
Maeve will eventually get hers.
Ooh,
I'm so excited.
nice.
I'll get it by
I don't
next
know when I'm
winter.
ever going to get back into my office, though, which is where the hats are actually located.
Okay,
They're-
well,
I've got a hat and a sticker. I can send one to. I'll send the sticker to Maeve and the hat to Michelle.
yeah. I'm hearing a lot of empty promises here.
No, they're not empty. They're just time determined based upon an unknowable pandemic scenario.
David, quick question.
You can take a 2-hour training and go on campus. Sorry.
What's it called when you increase from like 1 to 10 to 100 to 1,000? What's that called?
I thought they were orders of
Exponential.
magnitude.
So are we thinking exponential?
Well, that's only
Exponential,
no,
Maeve?
because 1 to the 1 is not 1 to the 10. It's just
Anybody
it's
know
just
this?
a 1 to 10 exponent. So if it's if 1 is the first number and 10 is the exponent. So I thought it was orders of magnitude.
Yeah, orders of magnitude is by 10. It's changing by 10, but
Oh, there you go. There's your
Usually
physics
not.
guy. Physics info.
but that's usually for making estimates. You try to be. That's why all the astronomy jokes are like, "Oh, pi, it's 1. That's close enough. Order of magnitude."
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Oh yeah. I never understand. My husband tried to explain that to me. I had no clue. Okay.
Right, sorry, I got
Next.
distracted there. Okay, so yeah, Michelle, I agree with you that the review screens are post MVP. We need to talk to the 2 teams that are doing it right now, get them to create a version that doesn't have review screens and that's ready to go to court.
Yeah, we actually, I think Quentin and I talked to them this morning, if they're Aubrey and Mia.
Yeah.
So, and we're working on that transition. I think we need to make sure that the other teams understand that too and understand what the next priorities are for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's creating issues to offboard or whether that's taking on a few more pieces from the checklist that we think they can take on. And I don't know who would be in charge of that, so we should assign someone, but it could be me. There's just a lot of things to do, but
I think what we want to do is, this is entirely this is not different from what you're saying. It's entirely in keeping with what you're saying. Is we want to make sure that people get something to a place that's good before they disappear.
Yeah.
Which is
Right.
entirely in keeping with, like, let's not add other things to them. That being said, there are other things we're adding to our plate that are going to just take a long time for people to get to, because
Yeah.
people are gonna.
Yeah.
For sure.
On that vein, Sinead Fernando's form got to a certain point. Now it's in limbo. What do we pick up? Who's going to pick that up? It's the notice of limited appearance.
I think we do need to start making a list of what is the backlog, and I think that can be on the backlog. Like maybe there should be a list like David has for like what forms should we do. That is like what forms are in the backlog and how do we prioritize them.
And then we probably
Trello.
Or Trello.
And then this might be where the people, instead of saying you've got your MVP, continue to add new features, you say you've got your MVP, go bring this other one up to MVP.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
I like it.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. So I'd like to, I suppose I'd like to know when we're going to, how we're going to identify that and who's going to have those conversations and where we're going to send them. So like the details of that, I suppose that might wait till next management Monday or something, or
Well, I think
other conversation, but.
The broad strokes are edit screens are MVP. So everyone work to get an MVP. But then the idea is once you've gotten the MVP and you're looking for something to do, then we'll have you bring someone else, one of these orphaned projects up to, although not orphaned. I mean, it's not like they were transitioned out, but I'm tying everything together.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that I'm like, don't work on extra stuff past MVP. Get to MVP. Once you've gotten the MVP, raise your hand, and then we'll give you someone else's project that didn't quite get to MVP that needs to be brought up.
Okay.
So it doesn't even require us to set up a bunch of
as long as
priorities.
we have that list. Yeah.
We do have a list in Trello now, which was supposed to be that, but it's just we haven't been very good at using it, I think.
No,
Or maybe
I think nobody's had time to dig into it. You know?
we are going to have to.
Yeah, I'm kind of saying the same thing.
We are going to have to kind of move over to Trello again, because Trello worked really well in the beginning. That was with the pre-processing. So we know it does work. The management, the stand-up meetings kind of took the place of that, and everyone working on a single form and working in teams was really easy to navigate. So, you know, hopefully what Jody and I can create will take, that's another thing that will take a load off the management in that sense, is that people will be able to rely on Trello a lot more to see where things are, what needs to be done, what has been done. So things like we wouldn't have to have lists everywhere, like it will be there.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I like that idea. So, okay. So, but Trello is not ready yet, correct?
No, it's not ready yet.
No.
So for now, I think we might have a list.
Okay.
We can do. And then like when we identify, like I think a discussion about MVP with each group, and like one person in a group writing the issues that are MVP. I think maybe this is how it goes. One person in a group goes onto issues and writes what's going to be in the MVP. Once they have achieved what's in the MVP, they let us know and we give them another form that needs to reach MVP. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Sounds right.
Perfect.
Okay.
So Michelle, that those two topics tie in, the MVP review screens and the backlog. So what I'll do is I'll have a look at my list of the forms that are currently in. I do have a list because of the forms that are currently in progress and the people who are on those forms. It's kind of almost not an even split, but there's people who aren't in the daily stand-ups and people who are. So we can just go through that together. Maybe we can schedule a time tomorrow offline to get cracking on that, and then schedule time with each team after that.
Okay.
Maybe 8 o'clock. Does that work?
Sure. Yeah. 8 a.m. I assume.
I remembered another blocker we had was, so right now the process is informally, someone says they have the form, they let me know, I install it, then I let David know. I think we probably could reduce the step of me being involved in that at all, which would be nice for me.
I like that. I like the idea.
So I will tell people to contact David about getting their repository transferred, correct?
Well, I think we...
No, they have to install it. That's something that I'm not saying David needs to do the installation on the server.
But he's saying he doesn't have to be the one who installs it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I can do that for like a couple people the first time they do it, maybe.
Okay.
And then we record it, and people can do it on their own. It'd be an ideal.
Perfect. Okay.
Well, did I miss something? Are we going to have authors install their own?
On the test server only.
On the test.
Interview?
Only on the test.
Did I miss that? On the test server.
Only on the test, yeah. Yeah, only Quentin and I have access to the production, and that's not going to change.
And when you install, would that be, you can't change when you install an interview on the server, you can't change the CSS glow thing by doing that, can you?
No, you only can do that with a configuration. So it's important people don't, like I think just there's only one package that's part of the MA Virtual Court. But everyone else's are independent, so they wouldn't interfere with anybody else's interviews if they installed it. But I do want them to install it a particular way, which might require them to be able to access the configuration.
Right.
So it might really just mean like getting people more guidance about making sure their final work is committed to GitHub, and then having a few trusted people who can edit the configuration. That might end up what we do.
Okay.
And also that if you have the few trusted people, they're not gonna, you're gonna want separate accounts for them, right? So if something does go wrong, you can try and track it down so that you don't have like 3 people using one login, or is that?
Yes, that's right. And we're only talking about the test server too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. As Michelle said, conscious of everyone's time, Eric, you are a stalwart. Okay. Cover page for user, the template. This is Caroline's thing. So Mike has done one for the housing TRO. No, that's incorrect. Mike's done one for the vacation of default judgment in the housing context. The marriage without delay. They've also motion vacate.
We're talking cover pages. What are we talking now?
Yeah,
user cover pages.
User cover pages.
Yeah.
So
well, this kind of fits into the branding thing as well. We've been using 2 columns, a particular type of font and everything. I think Mike's Vacate default judgment is nice because it's big, but it takes up a lot of paper, and then you have this issue of eye tracking. So it's better for anybody, even on print, to be able to have narrower column. That's why newspaper columns are not so wide.
And why switching over to reading on your Kindle on your phone was not actually as crazy as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. So anyway, so I think we ought to have a template for the user cover page, and with the whole thing, with the font and the, maybe have the heading go across, have everything left justified, have your bullets left justified, that, all of that stuff, which kind of goes into the readability style guide, but the readability style guide can inform. So we have one cover template, and it doesn't have to be as fixed as basic questions, but just so people know, you could have a word styles page, and then people can create, go there, get the template, and then do whatever it is they need to, because all of that information is going to be different. And the other thing I think
sounds good.
we want to talk about is content for it. So this is what you do with it, and then this is what happens after you do. So this is the thing that baffles self-represented litigants the most, is they file something, they go to court, they have the hearing, they walk out, and they're like, now what?
Okay. So I've got here, so I'm just thinking of assigning this, because Mike is 1, staying on this project, and 2, self-proclaimed has free time this week. he's already done. He's already done his cover page, and I was wondering if maybe with your help, Caroline, he could perhaps come up, just what you said, like left aligned a certain font. He could come up with a kind of template that he could then submit for approval.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if we have anything. I'm just sort of thinking about keeping in with the mass access kind of look with the blue, that color blue. And do we have any, what's the name of the woman who did the designing for mass access?
Rose Devlin?
Do you think we could ask her to do a
template?
Like do a print template using the same theme?
We could definitely ask if she was willing to do that.
Who's in contact with Rose?
I can be in contact with Rose.
Okay.
I don't want to put too much on their plate. They gave a lot. I think the way I would frame it is we wanted something that had a visual continuity, and if he wanted to give you first right of refusal.
Yeah.
Who could say no to that? Okay, so David to approach Rose for cover page style.
Yeah, and if we can get that would be great. Then it I think would be much. And then we can change the tone. We can change everything for the cover pages, and then you've got this consistency for your users, because you're going from MassGov, or you're going from Google, you're going from Mass Legal Help, then you go to Mass Access, then you go to the Doc Assemble, and then you get yet another kind of look and feel.
Okay.
I'd love to see.
We got it.
Michelle gets it. Okay, so I think the next, so I like that. So just to confirm where we stand, Dave's going to approach Rose. We're going to leave it at that. And then David will get back to us and let us know if we have to
if
they're not keen.
I think can we wait to talk to Mike until we hear back from Rose?
Yeah, 100%. The next thing is not as important. I'm going to move that down to next week's thing. It was just about mass access ports linking. And then we've got the GitHub repo automatic ownership, which we've kind of talked about a little bit already with the ownership, but I'm not sure if there's anything else. This was just one of the things that was noted throughout the week. I think it was Michelle.
Which one is this?
Automatic.
Automatic ownership, like for new team members, also new team members, just automating that process, because every time right now, every time like someone is a new team member, or they're transferring the repository and then other people need access to it, it's every time. And like some people are really reluctant. Like it takes me and I'm not willing to be the go-between between them and Quentin and David on this. So I just say, ask them. And sometimes it takes like 10 times to be just like, ask them.
Yeah.
Right?
So every time
like, I don't have permission, ask them. And some people really have trouble with that, which is okay. I totally understand that. But if it happened automatically, then it wouldn't even be a problem. Right? Yeah. I mean, then you wouldn't have the learning exercise of like, kind of approaching that situation. But I understand that kind of reluctance, especially with like, it's just like getting used to GitHub. It's kind of scary to begin with.
Terrifying. So I think is the word.
Sure.
So how is it possible to do that?
That's what has to be, that's an item to be researched and then to be implemented if possible, or to be put down in a, like, this was researched and it wasn't possible.
Okay, documented.
I don't know where, but maybe we can make that 2 issues on, or 1 issue on MA virtual courts so that it's somewhere. Could you make that an issue? And then
is it that as soon as so when somebody joins, they get an account on Suffolk Lit Lab so that they can develop.
They get a membership on the team.
Membership, but that's on the Doc Assemble server, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so then
No, that's the GitHub.
And then when they want to save to a repository, they have to create their own GitHub account, save to that, and then transfer ownership to Suffolk. So what are you saying would be automatic?
The thing I'm saying would be automatic is that when a repository was transferred to Suffolk Lit Lab, team members would have automatic permissions to write to that repository.
Okay, that's exactly, yeah, perfect. That's what I was hoping that's what you were meaning, but I wasn't being over optimistic.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to make that an issue.
And new team members' permissions. That when people got added
That's part
as a
of
new
what
team member,
happened.
they would have write permissions on those repositories. Because those are two separate things.
Okay.
I mean, they can be in the same issue, but that's what needs to be.
And so basically this needs to be researched and documented.
Yep.
So if you can't do it, it needs to be implemented. If it can't be, it needs to be documented.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Google Script instead of Zapier. This was Michelle.
Yeah. Quentin once had an example of this. I was thinking if we could make the spec clear enough, I might be able to ask someone at Code for Boston who's familiar with Google Scripts to, or we could ask around to other people to kind of write one up. We would need a Suffolk Lit Lab email or account or something. We need an account on GitHub, a Suffolk Lit Lab, dummy account or whatever on GitHub to turn in the things, but so that we could have it per repository as opposed to all on the MA virtual courts, which doesn't let us actually specify where it's coming from.
Sorry, I missed. What would the script be doing?
It would be reporting issues, like getting feedback for, there would be a feedback form for, it would get feedback from the different repositories. I think there would have to be a different Google form for each one, but it could just be copied. But the Zapier cannot express, one form cannot express that level of detail, and because it doesn't detect where they're coming from. And Zapier, we can't make a million Zapiers. So I can't because I have a free account. So
The idea is to take data from a Google form and then make it into issues.
Yep.
We could also, this is just to throw, so yeah, I had found some example code that does it for Google Apps Script. Another possibility is Microsoft Power Automate, which is Microsoft owns their Microsoft Forms and they own GitHub. So it might be an easy integration.
Okay. Yeah,
It's a new
I
thing.
don't know.
There probably
I don't
are a
know
lot fewer
Microsoft.
people who know how to use it. So that's the downside.
Yeah,
Wait, what
I
was
don't
that
know
called
at
again?
all. Like,
Power Automate. You basically have to be an office.com subscriber, but Suffolk has access university-wide. I don't know if we could create the automation and then share it external to the organization. I don't know if that's a permission that we have or not.
okay, so when will we make, like if someone says yes to the to either one of these, but I don't know how to get people permission to the Suffolk Lit Lab, whatever, but I can start asking around on Code for Boston for those levels of expertise and see if someone there can do it, because I could tool around with it, but I'm doing other things. So
Yep.
like all my coding is going into one place right now. So I can show them, I can use the Zapier to show them what we want. I can use the existing structure to show them what we want. We will be able to get slightly more specific information without like all the boilerplate, so that'll be good. But we need someone who will do it. And I think all our plates are full right now.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Google Apps Script sounds like a good thing. Can you just lay out exactly what's needed still for that to try? If you have like a potential lead on volunteers, like what email accounts do you need and what permissions where?
So Suffolk Lit Lab email that is connected to a GitHub user, right? And I don't think they're going to need a Google account, but
Yeah, it depends on
I
how
don't
you.
think so.
Depends on how you do it. I imagine you do it as a task that would trigger every time a new row is added to the sheet attached to the
Spreadsheet.
form.
Yeah.
And then you could probably actually, depending upon what libraries you do, you could probably actually then just do an API call to GitHub without needing to, I mean, you just need to, if you can make an API call. I don't know
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming. The Zapier
so I don't
will
think
be
you need,
taken
I
out
don't
of the
think you need
middleman.
another,
You don't need another account, I don't
yeah,
think.
you don't need another account. You just need the key and the, whatever it is, however they do authentication.
Oh, okay. That's true. Okay. So it'll just be an anonymous user making an issue. That makes sense.
Or some defined, I mean, however, who does it come in from now? Who does it show
Me.
this? Okay. Okay, then we'll just make a, yeah, we'll
It
see how they
doesn't- it
provision,
doesn't
we
need
have to
to-
see how they
I bet
provision
you're right.
keys. Yeah,
I
however
bet
they
you're right.
provision
It doesn't
keys.
need to be a GitHub account, but it does, yeah. It needs some kind of,
Yeah, I don't know how
You
they
know
do
what? Then it doesn't
certification.
need
but-
Should
any
we wait
account.
till we
It doesn't
see
need
the
any
person who
account.
knows the Google Apps script and to have them tell us what they need? Because I think we probably
Sure.
just
Yeah.
need to share the spreadsheet with them and then
Just make this
make sure we can have
spreadsheet
a
so it make
copy
an
of
issue.
the app script so
Well,
it doesn't.
Yeah.
we need it to be able to either be copied to different spreadsheets or to,
Yeah.
because there'll be a different Google form for each repository.
Yeah,
from
well, if you
what I
build
can
the app scripts usually are associated with the sheet, so you can associate with the sheet. And then when
Yeah,
you
if there
copy
were one
the,
that didn't have to be associated with the sheet, that would be fantastic, but it
you
depends
can,
who you find.
you can call libraries, but there's a limit.
It's kind of a hard thing to do in Google Apps. That's one of the
Yeah.
downsides is
I ran into a fun,
share import code.
I discovered a limit in like how big a thing I could import when I was doing something with word vectors. I was like, oh, so you can only do 7 gigs.
Oh, geez.
I've never run into
Oh,
that.
wow.
limit.
Yeah. Me either. So yes.
So the action point is then for Michelle. Are you going to find somebody in Code for Boston with the Google Apps script knowledge, or do you have?
I will ask around. I can ask around there. If other people have places they can ask around, that would also be useful. I can ask around Code for Boston. I can ask around Code for America.
I bet there's someone who's done something similar to this already. It just could adapt something they've.
That's what I had originally found, but I guess the adaptation is what you're trying to look for someone who.
Yeah,
has
so you just
enough
need
skill
someone
and
who,
comfort with it to do it.
who knows enough
adaptation.
what you need to swap out, which is probably just an API key.
No, there's more details to it, but
I'm sure there's more details, but
Okay.
conceptually,
yeah,
they just have to
like
make
if it was just an API key, I could do that.
Well, yes, if it was exactly just cutting and pasting a string, yes.
There we go. So, but Quentin, if you remember where that is, that would be great. That was probably like way long ago before the Zapier, before the Slack records. Like it's probably lost by now, other than downloading.
I'll just re-Google it though, but I can post it on which channel?
Just code, I think, would be fine.
Okay.
All right.
So then, I didn't really understand a lot of that conversation, so my notes on that topic are not very detailed.
Okay,
But
I'll try and fill it in afterwards.
Okay, thank you. So then the last 2 things that we have to talk about are basic questions and style. Now, I'm very aware that we've been on for a very long time, and
A little over 2 hours.
I'm just over 2 hours.
aware
I have to go by
of
3, so.
So we've got a couple of things that were just raised. I'm not sure if we want to maybe specify a specific time in which we want to speak about these. And, maybe broaden the conversation. These are just things that I noted kind of throughout conversations and demos. I put it in this forum because that's where I thought maybe we could either discuss it or find a time to discuss it. So let's take a poll. Who wants to discuss this now and who wants to discuss it later? Now is up, later is down. Okay.
Caroline,
I haven't.
It must not be as warm outside there where it is here. I'm baking in my back porch.
What? What's that? What? Why are you saying about warm?
Well, I'm just thinking your stamina is amazing right now.
Oh, I mean, actually, the sun's gone to the other side of the house. I'm cool.
Oh, nice.
And also, these issues, I've really, really wanted to get them resolved because I think for all our it's like it's up in the air. Everybody's going to basic questions and it's not working the way it should, and then they're creating their own, or they're not. That's.
I think the code style.
I wasn't actually paying attention to.
I think some of the stuff in the code style meeting that I was planning to have in the code style meeting also apply, which is how to make abstractions with basic questions. So how to organize those abstractions. So I think I don't know. What were the thumbs up and thumbs down? I didn't even see.
If we're
Caroline was
talking,
just up there.
I don't think we really got there all the way.
Oh, okay.
What are you doing? Oh, that's your little Yoda
What are you-
guy.
What is Yoda saying, Maeve? Is Yoda saying we should wait?
Yoda wants coffee.
No, listen, I can do another time. I really care about this, but I'm not going to be disappointed if everybody's turnout. I totally get that.
What is everyone else? Let's see. Let's do an up-down vote.
I'm getting a second wind.
Okay. Okay, well, everyone's.
Great, I'm the only one that was like, I'm done.
No, Michelle.
Okay.
Oh, Michelle, you're like
She's
loosey
on
goosey.
the
Lucy,
border.
Gracie,
was
Sarah,
this
Quentin,
too?
and
I'm the
David.
same too.
Sarah,
Yeah.
Quentin, and David.
Exactly
I
what.
won't vote. I'll stick in either.
Yeah.
I will. I can stick with it. I have to
That's-
go.
The thing is, I need
Let's
Quentin
pick one small
urgently-
part.
That's what I'm thinking. We pick one to deal with today, and then we schedule another time for a meeting in which we discuss the remainder.
So what's the
Okay.
most important thing there to pull
Caroline,
off?
what's the one that you want?
Let me just pull it up again. I've got to look at it. So,
There's also the impoundment.
let's
Don't add
do the
more
impoundment.
things.
We're going to be on here all day. Wait a minute.
Oh, I
Sorry,
think
it's
the
bouncing.
impoundment is already done. Is it?
A lot of it is, yeah.
has to be memorialized.
Impoundment- Yeah. Where the heck is it? Wait a minute. Bentley.
That's point 9
uploading
and 10.
backlog.
Basic
What
questions.
number is it?
Item 9.
Oh,
Item
okay,
9.
9. Oh, so the first, you want to do a really quick mass access project introduction screen amendment. That's just to have something in front of mass access. That is easy peasy.
So what do you want? What do you want?
The concept is, I think we're all set with the concept. The problem is implementing it and testing and make sure it doesn't break stuff. But it definitely is doable. It's actually not even that big of a thing.
I would have thought it'd be really
Just put on my
easy.
backlog.
Is this the idea to get the form name on that front page with things?
Or, I don't know if we want the form name or something like ask the court to, and then whatever it is you want to do.
Some
because
information about what you're about to.
I'd like to see it in the heading. So if somebody's on a link anywhere and they come to the very first page, they don't say mass access project. They say, ask the court for a restraining order, ask the court to vacate a judgment. So it's not the form name, because the next page would be the form name, but the first page would be
The description.
ask the court
Action,
for.
yeah, the action you're asking.
Way.
We want to keep mass access in there as well.
I think so. You do, don't you?
I think
That's
so.
part of your
The
branding.
Okay.
And maybe that page on basic questions, instead of saying use this website, we could say use the mass access project to blah, 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 blah.
Okay,
I like that. So I think we're all on board on concept. It's, as Quentin said.
Implementation. So, okay, so in the meantime, can we ask people, because we are going live with these, can we ask people to adapt the basic questions and then that be a to-do that once we implement it, we just go back? I mean, it's not a big edit on those interviews.
I guess you're right. Either way, we're going to make an edit. I do worry a little bit about people doing it on their own, because then it'll be hard to tell it needs to be edited.
Yeah, and then we lose the accept agreement thing.
Right.
Accept
We lose
terms.
the ability to make those changes for the other parts of it easily. Maybe it just needs to be a priority, and I just need to put that ahead of other things so it's not a blocker. That sounds like a reasonable thing to do. It's really small and easy to test once we finish
That's
it.
what I was thinking. It's such a small thing. And the way to test it is just to get everybody to make their first question be a basic question. And just everybody does it once on their interview, then it's done, right? Isn't that a fairly straightforward test?
Yep. So everyone will have to add some code to, like a line of code that creates the variable somewhere in their document after the include for basic questions. That's what will have to happen.
Okay, so here's another little tweak, and maybe this isn't for this time, but down the road is, so right now it says forms. Sometimes people are only doing one form. You could argue that certificate of service makes the form 2 forms. I don't know, but that was the other little piece.
So do we want to track the number of forms, or do we just want to change it to say form because it can be a collective process?
I mean, ideally we'd track the number of forms, then it would just make it be form or forms.
Okay. The only
I don't know.
problem
I
with
don't know if
that
that's more.
is language.
To me, that would be more complicated for you and might take longer, but it's just
I think
such a little thing that it might not be worth it.
also, I think Quentin's put his finger on the fact that that goes against our language thinking for translations.
Right.
Not impossible to work around. It just means we have to make the
Oh,
whole
for the
sentence
the
conditional.
conditional sentence rather than, but that's, I mean,
That's just
No, it's just something to think about.
acceptable.
yeah, but we can make a sentence. I mean, when maybe you need to review that basic question screen again. But that was, I think that out of that list, that's the easiest one to do.
Well, are we okay with just changing it to form now? Because it's more descriptive for most of the things.
Yeah, so I think
Then it's just a pull request that you could make, Caroline.
Mhm.
That
Okay.
wouldn't require any testing really at all, if any.
look at us solving problems.
I'm thinking then, like, this does really, I don't think I agree with the term abstractions, but I think it's Michelle's point. Like, so as we make these little changes,
Yeah,
what I'm realizing is we really have our own API for all of the forms, which is it's growing in scope, and we have to think about how to organize it and make it accessible for people to enter into when they're creating their own forms.
that's a basic questions. You're saying the API is a basic question?
Yeah. So all
And-
the things that
and-
you want to do to make a form work, we're
Yeah.
adding more things to that list to keep track of. I was calling them magic variables before, but really it's an API.
It is, and some of what I think we need to figure out is where we're going to allow people to customize these basic questions. For example, the court locator page where we want people to be able to put in an image or other things. Like there are things that have been mentioned along the way. I think you added them as issues that really have to do with customization, but maybe these are not those basic questions. So maybe this is not part of the abstraction conversation.
Well, I don't think we're having that one yet. I'm just saying
Okay.
I'm just saying there's a bigger discussion. So each of these are individually easy, but then we create a list of things people have to know to be able to do it, and that we have to document and keep track of. So I think that the form title one is such a big one that it's worth, we might come back and change the way it works later. That's okay, because we want to make sure that people know what they're on when they get to the first screen. But like, as you were saying, keeping track of the number of forms. Well, we don't have any variable to store the number of forms right now. So we could do a way to calculate that automatically. People would need to override it a fair number of times because they're doing custom things. And how do they know where to access?
So I think we'll just maybe just leave it at forms now, and not modify it.
At forms or form?
It sounded like we thought maybe form would be a better default.
Okay, I don't feel strongly one way or the other.
Okay, perfect. So that's agreed on.
Okay.
Do we have that line of code, or is this what we're talking about?
We have to create a variable for people to put in their interview, and then it's got to pull it. Isn't that right? Is that what you're saying?
For the name of the form? For the title of the form?
No, the name of the ask the court to blah.
Right. Yeah, not the name of the form, right. It's a whole different thing. Would it be a reasonable default to use what they put in when they ran it through the wizard? It would be long and maybe too clunky, but at least it would highlight, oh, you have to change this thing. Maybe that's better than just saying mass access. What do you think?
I think that placeholder is a good word to put in a place where you want people to edit something. Like if you actually want people to edit something.
Oh, it
Otherwise,
just
they
says
tend to leave it
placeholder : mass access.
Yeah. Placeholder title : mass access.
Or placeholder ask the court. Maybe
action
not.
or something like that.
Placeholder form name mass access. I don't know. Whatever it is we want. I just think if you put something that sounds like it kind of makes sense, people just leave it.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Do we want it to have mass access in the name? I thought that's what you had said before, Caroline. So
yeah, I think
you
want to say ask the court to such and such : mass access.
Okay.
And then in your first sentence, instead of saying this website, you say the mass access project helps you blah blah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not looking at the basic questions right now. I should, so that I can actually give you the language of this.
Thank you for documenting this, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that's decided. Quentin, is this something that you're gonna take ownership of, and then will let us know?
Yes.
Okie dokie. We'll follow up with you on that.
I think some of us have meetings coming up at 3.
Yeah. So do we have anything else that we want? That's a quick thing. Maybe scheduling the next code style meeting. I see that 10.2 is really post MVP. That's kind of like the next iteration. That's just signature field amendment style. We saw Vinny and Mia's thing with the service, which was quite nice. So that's kind of, what we have now works. So this is not vital to talk about right now.
Can we, yeah.
Can we put them on a, like, still needs to be discussed? Maybe this is
I'll do it now.
I think
Okay.
10.3 is really easy.
How to deal with
Maybe even easier than 10.1.
Well, there's one question about it which I have, which is, do we think it's helpful to have the map and the list of courts when people are responding? And I don't know if everyone had agreed with that or not. I tend to think it is, because people don't know the name of their court, and so the more you can give them to help them recognize the court, the better. And they may not have the form in front of them, even if the form is the very best way to get it. But people make mistakes there too. I often see people where we say, put the name of your court, they write Edward Brook Courthouse, which is the name of the building, not the name of the court.
Right.
Well, I think the drop down is helpful, but I think there's a whole sub question that says that this is the court that's here. I mean, it's filing in your complaint is very different than responding.
That's very true.
And so the questions just read differently. I think we should have, I don't think you have to look at, I don't think you necessarily have to look it up, but you can do the drop down. It's confusing to have a drop down.
Do we want to keep the suggestions though?
In the
list of matching courts, I mean, sorry.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. What do you mean keep the suggestions?
Oh, right now, the locator, which I guess isn't used in all of the interviews yet, but it includes a map and a list of courts that serve their address. Should we keep that in or take that out for responding cases? We know that they're responding.
I have to think. I'm not actually sure I've heard you talk about it. I'm not sure I've actually seen it. So mostly it's just there's something about these are the courts that can hear your case. That language is not, it's not, it's that kind of language, but I think I think what you're saying is, yeah, they don't know where it is. They can look for a map where it is, but I'm not sure maybe it's not as easy. I have to look at it and see what I think, but certainly right now as it stands, it's not good for people who are responding. But maybe those are old, yeah.
I think we could take out that language in general. I think that was more like, the more I look at it, it doesn't seem like it's helpful information for people to know the types of courts when we already show them a list only of those types of courts.
Yeah. So maybe we can just work on, outside of this, maybe we can just work on that. See if we can make it, either it can be one question that does the job for both, or we have two questions and you pick which court question you want.
So similar to the way that you say, are you starting or responding? Similar to that kind of, logic, even linked to that logic, I guess.
Yeah, maybe you could even do that if you're starting or responding, and that informs which court question you get asked.
But sometimes they can set it themselves, I think, right?
Sometimes they can do
what?
what?
The coder can set it if it's always known.
Oh yeah, you can say user equals plaintiff, user equals.
Oh yeah.
But in that case,
that's
then
really helpful.
So if user equals plaintiff or user equals respondent, they're always going to be. I mean, would
is this an?
Do you have like counterclaims? Do you have like? cases
You
of
can't
merge.
change the chord though, in that case.
Well,
So,
maybe we have to think a little bit more about it.
So this wasn't a great one to pick. I mean, we did so well. So
No, it is a good, I know, I think it's really,
good.
I mean, just because we don't resolve it, I think it's easy to talk about and then think about what the options are. I'm happy to think a little bit more about it.
Okay. So if you're studying or responding, this should tie into the forked question. Okay. So I'm gonna just move the remaining ones to another document.
Another meeting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and if we can, probably code style meeting will probably be the best place for that. So if we could just schedule that in the coming, I'm not sure what people's availability is like.
You and I are still doing the interpreter question at some point, right? We haven't done that yet.
No, that's on my to-do list this week.
Okay.
That ties into that.
And then also we're going to talk about, this whole thing about whether we're talking about you referring to the tool as a tool. Yeah, so that we're going to keep
how to refer to
doing
the
that
tool.
in Slack.
So how to refer to the tool to help people fill out the form, interview guide form. We needed to talk about that.
And Quentin wanted branding for the Q&A.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we talked
I've
about that.
emailed Ron Irwin, so hopefully he'll get back to me sometime this week, and we can set up a call with regards to that. Okay, is that fatigue that I'm hearing?
Maybe.
I have another meeting to jump
realize
on
I
in a
didn't
couple
eat any
minutes.
lunch yet either.
Oh, you
so that's what I
guys,
do.
your stamina is way stronger than me. Okay, so I think I'm just gonna post this link again, and then we can.
When you see Mia and Vinny, can you put their interview down? So,
Sorry?
to remind us. You said see Mia and Vinny. Can you put their interview, not just them, but their interview?
Sure. Sorry. Yeah.
Their motion. They're the probate and family court motion form, right?
Yeah, generic motion for family law. See, generic motion family. Okay.
Quentin,
perfect.
this meeting you're going on at 3, are you going to be able to help me with my server, or do we have to do that another time?
Do I have a meeting at 3, David? I can't remember.
Oh, I thought you
No,
just
I
said
have a meeting at 3.
Okay.
So can I grab you or no?
I better eat some lunch. So, but then
Okay.
after that, yeah.
Okay.
Let me try. I'll ping you after.
Is Tuesday tomorrow going to be office hours?
As I was thinking last week about people who were working on review screens, I was like, oh, that's actually a perfect topic we haven't covered that I could go into. But do we think that would be bad for people getting into another quagmire?
I think people would get distracted. I mean, we can. I think people will get distracted with.
We'll want to add review screens.
We'll want to do it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Because that's really how you learn something, right? Is to do the exercise.
I'm doing it on your.
What about merge conflicts and pulling in other people's branches?
You could do that.
Would you be up for that, Michelle?
Aubrey and I are writing up a lot of instructions, and maybe we can have some more of those. So pulling in other people's branches and merge conflicts specifically.
Well, just edits that other people make. What do you do?
I think that would be great, because I do want to have another substantive one if we can, because I think people appreciate having a little change
The
up.
substantive ones are nice.
Well,
I'm going to have to jump. I'm going to make someone else the manager.
Okay. Later, David.
Yeah.
And luckily my next thing is a WebEx, so it won't kill this one.
Oh, good. If I'm doing readability edits, people aren't seeing the branches, they don't know what to do about it, etc. And then if they get a merge conflict, so in a way it's good timing, because if I'm starting to push readability branches, people are like, I didn't see it, I don't know, and it's just they don't know what to do about it,
Who says it like that?
What says
that's what they mean in spirit.
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
Okay,
and,
no, that's a good point. That's a good thing to talk about. I think that as interesting as review screens are, I just think that it's going to be a problem if we make that a lesson.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. I mean, and
Eric,
it seems like a great topic.
If you want to help with the creation of the documentation on these two topics specifically, these two topics specifically, we might be able to have documentation for people tomorrow so that they can review it if they want it off of, you know, a kind of a, at a different pace, right? On their own pace.
So
Thank
basically,
you, Eric.
For leading the little lesson on it, Michelle.
sorry, wait. Sorry, Eric, what were you saying?
I'm confirming that this is what Michelle was talking about in a message earlier, about there was some part of the GitHub documentation that you wanted me to help with, or?
Yeah, those were other parts, but
That's
we
other
can
parts.
focus
Those
on
parts are
these
done?
ones instead. I don't know if they're done, but we could focus on these so that
Okay,
they'll be ready for
before
tomorrow.
the stand-up, before the teaching. Yeah, sure.
So
Sounds
what were you saying, Quentin?
Are you going to be doing this GitHub lesson tomorrow? That's what I wanted to check.
I can or you can. I don't care. I don't know that I've done a very good job with the previous ones, so.
I think you have. I think you're a great teacher.
Yeah, I think you
I
have
think
to.
you've done a wonderful job.
Okay.
And
Not to put more pressure on you for tomorrow. I mean, that's
Sure.
if we had someone's code, maybe Caroline, you'd have someone, you could just do it live, because that always helps if it's
yeah,
concrete.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
If I didn't have to
basically-
make examples, that would really help me.
Yep.
Right. So I did readability edits for Mike's consumer debt
Okay.
motion to vacate, and I owe him readability edits for the motion to vacate the housing default
Yeah.
judgment. And
Do
so
we
If we
know-
want to make those new ones, then
Sorry?
we'll definitely have fresh ones, even if he figures out how to pull in the ones
I don't
today.
think he's going to, but I
Okay,
will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, the motion to vacate default judgment, I think it's either been sitting there or I need permission. If I don't have permission, Quentin, I'll just do that right now to see if I have it. And if I don't, I'll do those edits tonight. So Mike won't be able to have accepted them. I'll tell him, don't accept these because we're going to do these in Teaching Tuesday.
Yeah.
Do we know for sure he'll have a merge conflict? Or we'll just see, we'll find out, I guess.
Somebody had a merge conflict with something I did. I can't remember. I'll go find it.
Okay.
Tell me what I need to do to make a merge conflict.
Yeah, that's what I'm also thinking. You could try to do a
You
merge
need to-
conflict with my thing, and then
You need to edit the same line as someone else has edited, and that you need to be behind master. So master, or you need to be behind the base branch.
Right.
So like someone you pulled off the
You
base.
mean behind in time, like
done it.
chronologically behind, right?
Like number of changes. So like someone else made some changes.
They're
now
watching you.
changes. You've edited the same things and they don't mesh, right? They're different. Those
oh,
changes.
Caroline, if you don't know how to do a conflict, now we know why.
Yeah, I'm being tortured by this chicken.
Oh, that's hard.
He's coming and pecking me.
Okay, that does sound difficult.
Hashtag farm life.
Mm.
Because yeah, we can also use mine if we maybe want to just see if we don't have merge conflict, we can just do something with mine. Like
Sure,
Yeah.
it just means you need to make changes to Maeve. She needs to pull first. Both you
I do
and
need
she
to make changes in
make
any event. So.
changes. Okay, and then she can make a change that is similar to your change.
Yeah, perfect.
An easy one is if you both change the version number after you fork.
yeah.
the bridge.
That's right.
That's true.
But
That's
not the
true.
most exciting to
Though I
fix.
will tell you, like, it's a lot trickier with regular code.
Yeah.
Just like, because it doesn't show you a diff.
I just went to my school.
It doesn't show you a
Oh.
diff, and so
So,
It's really hard to go back.
you have to run the code and do the same test afterward. Is that you as the developer have to pull it in afterward. So
Okay, I think we have lost focus here, guys.
we have lost everyone. We've lost everyone.
sorry, I was talking about this.
No worries.
Quentin, if you can think of a more effective way to resolve a merge conflict than in GitHub itself for people who don't do Git locally, because you then have to, as a developer, pull in the code, see if that's working, because maybe you changed something unintentionally. So you have to make sure, like, you have to run the tests that you would otherwise, and then push what you know is working code, and then the other person can try it. Because otherwise, like, you can accidentally change something really subtle.
If you're using the web editor, you mean?
Yep, if you're not
Yeah.
using something local.
And I think
I'd
it's
love to use
definitely the
one of
best way to do it, unfortunately.
Okay.
It is
Yeah.
the best way, because you can go right to the change. There's nothing like that in the playground.
Yep.
And
yep.
when I've tried to do similar things, VS Code is pretty good at helping you solve those, but it's a lot.
You can also, like, you can look at them in GitHub and edit them in your in your repository. So, but yeah, okay,
I'll have to
yeah.
go.
I thought maybe if you knew a better way, then it'd be better, but you don't. So
I don't. Doesn't have a lot of
nobody does.
extra
That's
at
the
least.
best way there is right now.
Yeah.
Cool.
And actually GitHub is, well, I don't know. Never mind. That's not really relevant.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing
Sounds
is if we
good.
had automated running of the repo, right? Which we have for some of the packages. So if we had that for more of them, then you could make sure it works. But you
Well,
could create subtle changes, as you pointed out. It's not really enough.
yeah, it's not really enough. Like I did something this morning where I switched, like it doesn't matter what, but it switched a variable name I didn't need to, and then I had to go through everything. So
Okay.
yeah, that's all. Okay.
All right.
I'm calling it, guys.
All right, let's call it.
Three
Too
and a half
painful.
hours later. Bye.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you, Erin, for staying on. That was really, it was
Yeah.
nice to have you on. And we will,
Yeah, it was nice to have you.
we will talk to you guys tomorrow.
Okay. Have a good night.
Yay.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.